All right, welcome back, modelers. Today's project is 3D04, our Fancy Tech Spiral Award. You're going to be creating an award that you're going to give to somebody else. It's going to have some nice fancy text on it, and you're going to use some type of spiral duplication to create a circle of objects. That's the general idea for this project. Let's dive right into it and get our project ready. We're going to create a base. We're going to duplicate some objects in a spiral. We're going to align some shapes, and then we're going to put our text in there. We're going to use the special text tools that are available in Tinkercad. All right, let's get right to it. First, we're going to open up Tinkercad and create a new file here. All right, so when we create a new document, let's take a look at kind of what we're trying to create here. I'm going to make something kind of like this, an award that has some special text on top of it. And it's got who you're going to give it to, what it's going to be given to the person for. You get 50 points for this. You're going to have advanced tools to create an award. You're going to create a custom spiral using duplicate shapes. So let's see how we can do that. First off, we created a Tinkercad assignment here. So here we have our basic work plane. The first thing that you're going to want to do when you create a new assignment in Tinkercad is simply to change its name. So up here in the top left, I'm going to change this to say 3D04 award. Fancy Text Spiral Award. There we go. So now that I have it named, I'm also going to put my name on there so that way I know whose it is. There we go. Fancy Text Spiral Award McDowell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating our base. So our base, I'm going to put this base down. It's going to be a cylinder. I'm just going to drop a cylinder down. The dimensions of the base, I'm going to make it 10 millimeters tall, and I'm going to make it 100 millimeters across and wide. There we go. We got a nice big base here to start with. All right, so now that we have our base and our dimensions for the base ready, first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how we're going to put a spiral down of objects. So I'm going to make a spiral of stars. I'm going to grab a star here, put it down. And what you're going to notice is that we can create a spiral of stars with the duplication tool. So this whole thing deals with duplication. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the object that I want to duplicate. Then up here on the top left, you're going to see something that says duplicate and repeat. So I'm going to press duplicate once, or you could press Control D, and you'll notice that apparently nothing happened. Actually, something did happen. The object was duplicated. However, the duplicate of it is inside of the object. So I'm going to move that object, and you'll see there, oh, okay, there's a second one in there. So I'm going to move this a little bit off to the side here. And now I'm going to rotate this object. I'm going to rotate it by grabbing the corner object right here where you see this curved arrow. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to drag it two big ticks over here down. Now, if you hold your mouse on the inside of this circle, you'll see that it aligns to each one of these bigger lines here as I move up and down. If I move my mouse outside of that circle, then you'll see that I can make it much more specific as to how many degrees of rotation I'm going to get. So I'm going to suggest that you either use 45 degrees, as you see here, or you use 30 degrees. 30. So either one of those would work fine. I'm going to make this 30 degrees. I'm going to move it to approximately where I want it to be, which will be about here. All right, now that I've moved it and I've rotated it, if I press the duplicate button again, you're going to see that it not only duplicates the object, but it's going to move it the same amount of distance that I moved it, and it's going to rotate it the same amount of rotation that I used. So if I press Control D or I press this button, you'll see that it makes the exact same shape and it moved it over. So now if I keep on pressing that button, you'll see that what happens is it will create a circle of whatever object you chose. So in this case, I use these stars, but you could really use any object that you want. All right, now that I've put this object down, what I want to do is I want to take all this. I'm going to select all of the objects in this group here, and I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to make it to where it fits inside of that circle I made. So I'm going to put 100 by 100 here as my dimensions. So now I know that it's exactly the same size as what's over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align these two objects together. So I'm going to select all of the objects, as you see here. Then I'm going to click on Align up here in the top right, or you can press L on the keyboard. When you do that, you're going to see these things appear, these little circles. We can align all of the objects to a side, as you see here. Or what I could do is, I'm actually going to have to group all of my stars here first. So I'm going to click and select all those. Then I'm going to go up here to where it says Group. That's going to make all of these objects work together. They're all going to move as one object now. Now I'm going to select all of the objects. I'm going to go to Align, and I'm going to press the center circles of both the X position that you see here and the Z position, which you see here. I'm not going to be able to see that very well, so I'm going to actually make it to where those stars, as seen here, I'm going to move those up by grabbing this little arrow right here that's seen towards the middle of the shape that you have. There's this black arrow. You can move that up or down, or you could press Control and use the arrow keys to be able to move your object up or down as well. So now it's perfectly aligned. You can see that the award is basically right on top of the other award. I'm going to shrink it down just a little bit. To shrink it down towards the center, you can hold down the Alt and the Shift key on your keyboard as you drag one of the corners either in towards the center of the object or away from the object to grow it. So I'm going to put it about there. That looks good. Looks great. All right. So now I've got my general beginning of my award here. Make sure that if you look at your object from the side, that you don't have anything floating. If it's floating, then it won't be able to print right. So I'm going to have to move this down just a little bit, make sure that it actually attaches to my object. There we go. That looks good. All right, so we've duplicated a circle of objects. You can choose what kind of circle you would like to make. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that these are aligned properly. Looks like we're good. It's perfectly in the middle. Now we have to think about what award we're going to give here. I'm actually going to put a tube out here, and I'm going to make the award stand out a little bit. I'm going to make it stand up. So I'll put a little tube here, make it a little bit bigger by holding down Alt and Shift as I drag out and away from the object. I'm going to align these two objects together so that way it's perfectly in the center of the object. There we go. Looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the award around the outside of this here. So normally we have these basic shapes right here, and you would normally use a basic shape. In fact, I'm going to use one of these basic shapes to make like a little trophy here. So I'm going to take this paraboloid, I'm going to turn it around. That is 180 degrees. I'll move it over into the center of this object, and I'll scale it up a little bit. That's pretty good right there. And I'll just move it up so it looks kind of like a trophy would. I might move this down a little bit. Scale it up a little. That looks pretty good right there. Now if I wanted to hollow out this object, I could simply duplicate the original object that I have here, move that duplication up, turn it into a hole, and then chop it out of the middle of this object. I'm going to select both the hole here and the solid object that I want to cut out, and I'm going to group those two objects together. And now, voila, there we go. I've got that object chopped out there, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and group these objects together, so that way they're all together. Looks good. Now I can take this object, and I can align it with this object. So once again, this is all kind of the same tools. We're learning how to align things to make it to where they only show up in the center of objects. All right, now this is perfectly centered. Now I've got all this set. I'm going to go ahead and group these objects together as well. There we go. I like it. Now you're going to want to put some kind of text on here using some of the fancy text operators. So I'm going to go over here back into my text or into my shapes, and on the right hand side you see that we have basic shapes here. I'm going to change that to show the shape generators. I'm going to click where it says Tinkercad Basic Shapes, and I'm going to go down to Shape Generators All. Now after I do that, I'm going to have some different things that I could pick here on the right hand side. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You're going to see these numbers that are showing up here on the bottom of our Tinkercad here. I'm going to click on the second number, and this is where all of the interesting text are. So I'm going to grab the text ring here, bring that out. We can see that there's text that I can change the values for. I'm going to change this text to say who the award is for. So this text, let's see, I'll put a I'll make this a best friend award. So here we can see that I have best friend that is written around in a little loop right here. Excellent. You can make the text have more gap or less gap. So I can basically make sure that it goes around in a circle. There we go. I've got best friend in a big circle here. By changing that text gap, you can change how much of a gap there is in between the letters. I can make it to where the letters all show up just on one side if I want to by making the text gap all the way to 100. Or I can scrunch it down so that way it goes and loops over itself, as you see here with a small text gap. So I'm going to make it just show up on one side. I can change the amount of thickness that you have for the text letters. That way it can stand outside of a circular object. And now if I want to, I can hold down Alt and Shift, and I can still change the size of this pretty easily. So I'm going to try to align this to where it's going to be aligned to this object. Once again, I'm going back into alignment. I'm clicking both of the circles that you see here. And now I can see that that best friend text is still a little bit too big. So I'm going to take this text. I'm going to click just on the text. I'm going to move it up a little bit by holding down Control and going up and down until I get the right size. I'll make it float up a little bit. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, and I'm going to resize this, and I'm going to try to make it to where I can put this just on the outside of my trophy here. That's pretty close. I'll make it a little bit smaller, probably about there. Yeah, that looks pretty good right there. So I've got the Best Friend Award that is shown here. I can even probably move it up a little bit, but I kind of like it with the text touching down on the bottom there. It looks good. On the other side here, you could put like somebody's name, or you could put a shape that you would like to put up there. I think I'm going to put another piece of text. So I'm going to grab this script text here, which is kind of fancy text, and I'm going to put this down here. So I can change what the text says. For the script text, there's a whole bunch of different types of text that you could use that looks really good. So I'm going to change it to Rosewood here, and I'm going to just put name right here so you can see what would happen. There's name. It says name there. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to cut this out of the trophy. So I'm just going to rotate it so that way it's on its side here. To do that, I clicked on the object, and then you're going to see these three little arrows that pop up. This rotates it this direction. This one rotates it this direction. And there's one more arrow over here on the side that allows you to turn it in the last direction there. So I'm going to make it just stand up. The letters are going to be standing up. And I'll move this up. Hold down Shift and Alt to resize, make it in the right area. I'm going to just make this text sit outside of this this region here. Now what you could do is you could potentially cut this into as a whole. So if I change this into a whole, I would be able to cut an area out, and that's what I intend on doing here. I'm just going to cut this name out of the main shape here. So let's try for that. There we go. So I'm going to take these two objects, the name that I have here and this, and I might as well include the other part, and I'm going to group them all together. It's going to cut that name out of the object as seen here. There we go. It's chopped out. And I've got the best friend part over here. So this is generally how you can make really cool looking models. In this case, you're going to create a trophy You get to use your own imagery. If you wanted to find something from Thingiverse and put it in here into your model, import it, you're certainly welcome to do that. In this case, I wouldn't print out this model because I think this goes all the way through. If we go into the middle here, yeah, we can see I need to actually add another cylinder in here. So I'm going to go back in and grab a shape. I'll grab a cylinder that I can put on the inside of this whole deal. I'm going to make sure that it's big enough. There we go. I'm going to align it with the other group here, the other shapes. Make sure it's perfectly in the middle. There we go. And then I'll take that shape and I'm going to make it grow a little bit. That way it fills in the middle here. There we go. I like that. Now there's no empty spot in the middle there. I can group all this together. And we've got a nice model of a trophy that can have somebody's name in the background here. You can change that to whatever you would like. And then it says best friend over here. This is how you can make a pretty simple trophy. You can put whatever kind of imagery you want in it. It doesn't have to be like this one. This is just an example. The things that you do need some advanced text. So you need something that either wraps around a circle or something that has nice letters that can be cut out of an object, like what you see here. And you need to have something that spirals. You're using duplication to make something go around in a circle. After we're all done here with our trophy and the way that we want it to be, you're simply going to export your project. So you're going to click up here on export. Then you're going to select everything in the design, and you're going to export it as an STL. Then you'll create a video screencast of your object here. When you create the video screencast, you want to click on the object, then click over here on this Fit View to Selected Shapes. From there, you can zoom in and show off all the different details of your project in a video recorded screencast. Press the Windows key and G to start your video screencast and make it look nice. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoy. Get to modeling and create something enjoyable. Farewell until we see each other or speak to each other again.